Under Plum Lake by Lionel Davidson, Part 3, Under Plum Lake, 26, Into Nothing. Dido was saying, "Barry?" And I said, "Yes," and blinked around to see where the others were. They weren't there anymore. I wasn't in the palace anymore. I was in the submarine. I was in the main room of it, lying on the sofa and blinking up at him. I couldn't think how I'd got here. I couldn't think when I'd got here. He said, "Do you remember me, Barry?" I said, "Of course I remember you." "Do you remember the palace?" "Of course I remember it." "Do you remember Plum Lake?" "What lake?" I said. "Plum Lake. Have you heard of it?" I hadn't. I'd never heard of anywhere like that. I felt confused. I kept remembering things and forgetting them again, as if I was going off to sleep or trying to wake up. "Are we going there?" I said. I had an idea we were going somewhere. "Not now," he said, and looked relieved. He felt my head. "I think I've done it right." He was looking at me closely. "Do you remember if I made you a promise of any kind?" He had made me a promise. He'd been nodding to let me know he'd keep it. "Yes," I said, and hung on to it before it went. He'd promised to show me a place with nothing in it. There was something dreadful about it. The name suddenly swam into my mind. "Abyss," I said. "Okay," he licked his lips. "I'll do it then, Barry. A lot has happened to you lately. You won't remember it. I've brought back just a bit. I hope it's the right bit. I mustn't interfere with the rest. They put things in your mind that you'll need when you get back." "Are we going back?" I said. "We're going up. That's why." He stopped. A shuddering had started in the boat. He cocked his head as if listening in the same moment I remembered having seen him do it before. And when he spoke, I had a weird feeling he'd said the same thing before. He said, "Now we're at it." "At what?" "The abyss." He slid a panel from beneath the table and pressed it. There was a strong tremor, like a high-speed lift slowing. He looked at me for a few moments uncertainly. Then he touched a control, and the boat darkened and the sea lit up. It lit up for miles. He touched another control and everything lit up. It lit up above, below, on all sides. I knew I'd seen this before too, but with a difference. There was little to see now. All around was pale honey light, and ahead of us a white mist. The mist seemed to be in motion, swirling. I saw the boat had stopped, but it hadn't stopped shuddering. It shuddered like a jet before takeoff. "We have to go to the control room," he said. I could see the control room. Its panels and dials were glimmering ahead, as if in space. I seemed to be in space as we walked there. All the structure of the boat transparent now. I couldn't see the floor. I couldn't see the roof or walls. I just walked in space. The furniture hung in it. He turned left, then right, and the bathroom passed, and the beds suspended in nowhere, and we were in the control room. I could see the nose of the boat, nudging this way and that, as if sniffing around, as if sniffing ahead. The wall of mist was ahead. It swirled for miles on either side, like a mountain range. "Our own power is no use here," he said. "We go on through to star power." He pressed a button, and a screen above the cockpit lit up. It lit up with 1,000 points of light. A circle appeared in the corner of the screen and began moving. It moved about the screen for a few seconds before stopping. It pulsed brightly for a moment or two and turned purple. Then the pinpoints of light that it ringed slowly faded, leaving just one which turned purple and began to pulse with it. The pulsations fixed and beat together as the pinpoint began to expand. It expanded till it filled the circle exactly. "Locked," Dido said. "They've got us. Now we have to lock ourselves." There was a bench in the cockpit, and he sat me on it, and then himself. I don't know what else he did, but I was suddenly stuck. I couldn't move. "We'll drop a bit," he said. "Don't worry." "Drop where?" "Into the abyss. It's nothing. There is nothing. Don't worry," he said. But I saw he was worrying himself. "You've got to forget this," he said quietly. "You're absolutely not supposed to see this." The boat had started slowly moving. It was moving toward the wall of mist. I saw now that the mist was made up of enormous clouds moving in a circular motion, up and around toward us. They seemed to be trying to push us back. Then we were in them, and wherever I looked, there were clouds. They were a grayish-white, and in furious motion, as if they were pummeling the boat, squeezing it. We seemed to be sliding and slithering through them, as if on bumpy ice, and presently Dido said, "Hang on," and we fell off. We fell off the edge of something. The nose of the boat dropped, and the tail came up, and we fell. We fell and fell, the boat toppling end over end. I could feel us falling and toppling, but I couldn't see where. We'd fallen into total blackness. It was black outside and black in. I couldn't see Dido or myself or even the dials. The dials had gone out. There was nothing at all to be seen. Still weirder, we dropped into utter silence. There was no sound of any kind. In blackness and silence, we tumbled and fell, and he said, "Barry, don't be afraid." I shouted, "I can't see!" I shouted as loudly as I could, but no sound came out, and it hadn't from him. He had spoken into my mind. "There are no light waves," he said. "There are no sound waves. There's nothing here. There's only thought. They've got us on thought. Don't worry. They'll hold us and steer us through." And as he said it, I felt us being held and steadied, and we were rising. We were rising and going forward, although still turning slightly, and again I felt a kind of vibration as if the boat was straining towards something and being pushed back. And he said, "Barry, if you see something, turn your head away. Don't look at it." "What is it?" "The world creating itself. You mustn't see it. Do you understand?" "Yes." But I saw it, just for a fraction of a second. I saw it and looked away, but all the same, felt blinded. I couldn't believe what I saw, but the boat turned, and I saw it again. And this time, closed my eyes and still saw it. Behind closed eyes, I could see it. A gigantic pillar, shining like an iceberg, broad as a river made of light. It was all of light, but it gave no light. It kept its light. All around was blackness. In the boat was blackness. The iceberg of light moved majestically upwards. A great molten mass, brighter than a furnace, brighter than the sun. Bits of it had crumbled off, and bits moved upwards with it. Behind closed lids, I felt my eyes searing. I felt my brain coming apart. I knew I was screaming, but no sound came out. I felt a hand on my head and knew it was Dido's, and then everything went. The terrible light went in the blackness. There was just his hand on my head, and I was lying somewhere, and music was playing. "Don't move," he said. He was watching me. I was on the sofa again in the main room, and the whole room was bobbing gently. "What happened?" I said. "We're back in the world above. In your world," he said. He was bending over me, holding my head. "Look at me." I looked at his green eyes. "You saw it," he said. "Yes, I'll take it away now. I'll take everything away." "No, Dido, wait." "I can't," he said. "I have to get you back. It's almost dawn there." "Just for a moment," I said, and found I couldn't say any more. My eyes seemed locked on his. There was a strange flicker in the green eyes, and a prickling sensation in my head. At the same moment, I had a dizzy, dreamlike feeling that I wasn't me, but him, watching me. And I was watching things in my head, things that flashed past like a speeded-up film. I knew it was me in the film, but what I was doing made no sense. I was doing crazy things. I was flying in a purple night. I was watching a lake glow in the sky. Then it wasn't a lake, but a moat, and whales were racing round it. And I was racing with them. I was cascading in the air with the whales. And then they were in the sea below me, except the sea was a lake of silver now. And there was a cliff in it, with a black hole of a cave, and a little canoe bobbing in the moonlight, and I was swimming to the canoe. And suddenly this was so familiar. The only thing familiar. Then I shouted out loud. I shouted with all my strength, but it came out as a bleat. I shouted from a dream, "Dido, stop there! I remember the canoe! What happened to the canoe?" The flicker stopped in his eyes, and he paused. "Well," he said, "I'll show you, just for a moment." He turned, and a door appeared in the back wall. "Can you move?" he said. I said, "Of course I can move." But I found I couldn't. I was weak as a kitten. "You've got to feel like that," he said. "I'll help you." My legs were so weak I could hardly stand. He got me to the door, and up some steps, and we were in the canoe, and I sat and looked around with amazement. It was the same canoe, but it was in the wrong place. It was in the wrong time. It had been in the middle of the night when I got in it just minutes before. It had been bobbing by a cliff in moonlight. Now it was in a vast sunlit ocean, and there wasn't a cliff in sight. There was nothing in sight. Where are we? I said. He pointed. Over there is China, and behind us Australia. We're over the Marineris Trench, the deepest spot of the sea. Below us is the Glister Deep, and below that the abyss. You won't remember any of it. I didn't. I didn't know what he was talking about, and I didn't know what was happening to me. Even while he was talking, I was forgetting what he said. I had the strangest feeling I was draining away. I had a feeling a lot of things had happened, and they'd happened with me. Yet I knew I'd only just met him. I'd met him in the cave. I'd gone down to the cave in the middle of the night, and I suddenly remembered. I shouldn't have. I remembered I had to go back. I have to go back, I said. Yes, we'll go back. How long will it take? Only minutes. This was crazy. It was impossibly crazy. How long have we been gone? I said. 3 days. 3 days? But it's all right. Everything is in your head. They've put it there. We've got to move now. But my clothes, I said. He got me up, and we were moving. And I'd suddenly realized I was wearing strange clothes. I was wearing a kind of tunic with sandals. Where are my jeans and the rest of my clothes? You'll have them, he said. You'll be back in them. They're damp, but you'll find out why. And my watch and the flashlight. The watch is okay. You'll find it going. The batteries in the flashlight wore out. You'll understand all this. You'll understand it on the shelf. Shelf? What shelf? He was stretching me out on the sofa. There's no time, he said, but Barry, listen, I won't forget you. I won't forget you, I said. You will. You're forgetting me already. You've forgotten my name. I looked at him, and I couldn't remember who he was. Moment by moment, it was all going. It's late, he said, but I'll tell you something else. The specialists said. There were specialists, but you won't remember. The specialists said you had a good mind. They said you had a good body. They said unless some accident happens, you'll have a great life. I'll see no accident happens. I'll try as hard as I can. I'll always watch you, Barry. I'll be your good angel. You won't know it, and there's no point in telling you, and you'd better settle down now. His hands on my head. In a few minutes, you'll wake up and hear it all start again. Wake up where? Hear what? Well, he said and paused, and that's the last I remember of him. I remember the sea glinting behind him and his head bent over mine. You'll hear, he said, and he seemed to be listening. You'll hear a kind of roaring sound. And that's the end of part 4, and it's the end of part 3 rather, and it is the end of the 26th section.